Hi, it's Sandy here again with a second Sandy Soapbox entry for January 28, 2023. Sorry, no slideshow today. I stayed up until about 4 in the morning making the last one. But don't worry, if you like the slideshows, I'll be doing more of them once I get all this stuff I want to say out of my head and can slow down again. Besides, all audio can be a good thing. You can drive or work out or listen falling asleep knowing you aren't missing anything, and I'll make these presentations keeping in mind I have to be clearer since you're just listening. Now, you may ask, does someone need to give up Scientology to do TROM? That's a little complicated, but I'll do my best to keep it simple. First off, if you just study Scientology and are not a member of the church, then no. You don't have to give up anything. I mean, who am I to tell you what books you can or can't read? If you do TROM and want to read about Scientology too, I not only respect your decision, but I also actually encourage you to study it on your own. If you want to join the Church of Scientology, then more power to you. I'll respect that. Unfortunately, if you want to be a member of the church, you have to leave TROM behind or keep your mouth shut about it, with that first being the church's rules, not mine, and that second being my advice to you. But even if you take my advice, it'll still be uncomfortable posing as a church member but practicing TROM in private. The church is going to check to see if you practice anything else besides Scientology before you enroll on a major course or get auditing, and you are going to have to lie to them, and that's not as easy as it sounds, because you will be connected to an e-meter when they ask you. Since TROM is a self-administered exercise, there's no one to answer to as far as your spiritual practices are concerned. This is freedom in its purest sense. But I am sorry to say, as much as I like the subject of Scientology, the religion itself is a jealous one. Sure, they tell you that you can be Jewish, Christian, or Muslim and still be a Scientologist, but if you practice something like TROM or EST that has any roots in Scientology, they will insist you stop. But I can't say I blame them for being this way. In the earlier days of Scientology, sometimes when class was over, groups of students would play around with an e-meter and invent processes to run on each other. Well, this led to some nasty situations. People really screwed up their minds, and in the policy letter, Keeping Scientology Working, L. Ron Hubbard talks about one instance of how a woman died as a result of this. So Hubbard clamped down on his subject. He made an order that Scientology should only be practiced per his directions, and in indoctrinating every Scientologist into that mentality, he kept everyone safe from screwing up their minds with processes they invented on a whim. The church does not have the time or the resources to review every last spiritual practice that builds on and improves upon Scientology and test it to see if it's beneficial or even safe. And even if it was beneficial and safe, they can't endorse it or incorporate it into their religion because Hubbard ordered them never to do such a thing, and he can't change his mind about that because he's dead. Overall, I think the church is better off maintaining this policy. But on that same note, they only really have the right to enforce this on their parishioners, not on the general public. This is what I believe, not necessarily what they believe, mind you. So, you are probably asking yourself, how do I know TROM isn't some wacky thing that's going to mess up my mind? I asked myself the same thing when I started. If you are a Scientologist watching this, a church member, not someone like me, you are automatically going to dismiss TROM because that is what you are trained to do. I don't blame you for feeling this way. If you are happy with Scientology and the church, and have no complaints about it, I'd say don't bother with TROM. You'll go free with Scientology technology same as you would practicing TROM, I have no doubt about that. I have looked into some other things that supposedly improved on Scientology that I can tell are just plain nuts. TROM is actually the first and only practice derived from Scientology that I found to make perfect sense all the way through and not nuts at all. There's a good reason why this is. It's because Dennis Stevens was not just some wacky student playing around with an e-meter after class. He was not just some guy who finished half of his auditor training then got disaffected with the church and went off half-cocked inventing his own tech. Nope, that is not Dennis at all. He practiced Scientology for 3 decades. He was a friend of L. Ron Hubbard. He also was one of the first students on the original St. Hill Special Briefing Course, a famous auditor training course in Scientology. I mean, the guy got the St. Hill Special Briefing Course right at St. Hill itself with L. Ron Hubbard delivering it. This guy Dennis was really involved with Scientology and knew the subject very well. But it's not just that. As impressed as I am with Dennis's qualifications, it does not matter if his tech does not work. But it does. And it works great. I've done the first 4 levels of TROM. Yeah, I have had some rough spots with it, I won't lie to you. Nothing that was going to send me to the loony bin or cause me to die. Nothing I could not repair either. I sometimes wish I could just go over to the local Scientology organization and have an auditor check my progress every once in a while, but the church is the way it is and they are not going to change. So, I am on my own. But my independence is more important to me than validation from an e-meter or an auditor. So, are you going to practice TROM or join the church? Making up your mind starts with this one question, and that is, can I handle the mind all on my own? I'd say read the Scientology books and study some TROM and then decide. Dennis says 95% of the population can handle the mind on their own right off the bat. Of the other 5%, most will need some help at first, and for the rest, there's going to be extreme cases like their mind has been fried by electroshock therapy or they are otherwise brain damaged, that won't get any benefit out of TROM. There's not much more to say on this. Study up on both subjects. Decide what you want to do. If you go with TROM, you have the freedom to study both subjects and don't have to hide it. But if you want to become a member of the Church of Scientology, be advised, they will want you to leave TROM behind. Thanks for listening. I'll see you again soon, especially if you subscribe. So go ahead and do that now, please.